A warm welcome to my dear friends and students. A very good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you. And as you know, this is the DADM, which is Data Analysis and Decision Making 1 set of lectures or course under NPTEL MOOC series. And this course is for 12 weeks. Total number of hours is 30, that is 60 lectures. And we are in the 8th week. And today is the last class of the 8th week, which is the 40th lecture. And as you know that each week we have 5 lectures, each being for half an hour. And I am Raghunandan Sengupta from the IME department, IIT Kanpur. So first I will wrap up whatever we discussed in the last 2 lectures. So when we were discussing about the PC principal component method, so I was taking the vectors. So vectors are corresponding to the eigenvectors. So the first value for the first vector, that means the 1 comma 1 would be multiplied with the x1 random variable, that is the weight. Then corresponding to 1 comma 2 for the first vector would be multiplied by x2. Continue this in this way. So these are the linear combinations which you are trying to basically formulate corresponding to the y1, which is the first principal component. Then the corresponding cell values for the second vector, first, second, third, fourth would be multiplied by the corresponding x1, x2, x3, x4 respectively to get you y2. We will continue in this way. Now we have already presupposed by the consideration of eigenvalues and eigenvectors, they are orthogonal. So obviously it will mean y1, y2, y3, y4 are all orthogonal, point 1. Point number 2, you have to basically find out the variability and also check that the basic assumption based on which we are proceeding is that the sum of the squares of the deltas which you are formulating for the first stage, second stage, third stage, by the word stage I mean corresponding to y1, y2, y3. When you add up the squares should be 1, we have also proved that. Then the third thing which we basically found out for the variability we also found out basically corresponding to y1, y2, y3 but basically coming out with the eigenvector values. So in this way, taking these 3 important concepts, we have been able to prove the principal component method is actually based on scientific and mathematical reasons, and once we find out y1, y2, y3 we can safely say they are the best combinations of x1, x2, x3 till xp in some proportions such that the variability and the dependent structure is given the maximum set of information from those y1 to yp and they are orthogonal. So based on that we can basically conclude the principal component method which we did is right. Obviously it has been a little bit long drawn process. We spent about 1.5 or about 2 lectures to find out the corresponding principal component method and solve it. So we will basically go into the second method and proceed correspondingly, take some time in order to solve that. And obviously if you remember I did mention about the multi-linear regression concept also, we will come to that. Now we will consider the concept of factor analysis. So the origins of factor analysis, which is dates back to the work of Pearson in 1901 and Spearman. So basically based on that we will try to understand the concept of factor analysis. So I will basically first go through the concept, then give you the results. So the term factor analysis, as we know today, was first introduced by Thurston in 1931. It is basically a multivariate statistical method based on a model when the observed vector is partitioned into unobserved systematic part and an unobserved error part. So you have x1 to xp. So their effects are divided into 2 sets, one in unobserved systematic type of error or type of, I will not say that error, systematic type of effects, and another is basically white noise which we cannot control. So what we want to find out is that find out those sets or combinations in such a way that we are able to give the maximum level of prediction. Prediction I am using the word very generally, level of prediction such that we are able to solve the problem and give us the maximum set of information. Now, the components of the error vectors are considered as uncorrelated. So, obviously, if there are x1 to xp, the errors which we will have, we will consider that for the best case the number of errors are also p, but obviously it can be more or less, but we will consider these errors in such a way that they would be uncorrelated and independent, which may not be true. We will try to basically assume very simplistic assumptions. So, for the concept of factor analysis, you will basically have x1 to xp. So, one set would be the variables in minimum number of quantities of x1 to xp, such that as I mentioned, they would be linear combinations of the effects coming out from relatively small number of unobserved factor variables. Another would be the errors, which we will consider they are uncorrelated and independent. So, we will have basically two sets of combinations coming out. But if you remember, for the principal component analysis, we did not consider any error sort of thing. So, using the concept of factor analysis, one can separate the effects of these factors, which are of primary interest to us, from the errors. So, what we are interested in, take out the errors, what is left is the pure effect, and we want to find out from the factors in the minimum number of first factors, which will give us the total number of maximum effect. Stated explicitly using factor analysis, we intend to partition variables into particular groups, such that within a particular group they are highly correlated among themselves, such that the effect of the dependent structure we are able to study it with the maximum accuracy. I am using the word accuracy again in the general sense. Moreover, these variables have relatively small correlation. So, what technically we are doing is that the x1 to xp will basically try to divide into, say for example, groups. Fx which is there between each group, interrelationship would be maximum, point 1. Point number 2, the effects within the groups or the correlations, also called the dependency structure between the groups, would be minimum. So, I will try to draw it in the sense it is like this, which may not be the actual way I have been able to do for the principal component, but this is just a try. So, let me use the axes as, so consider you have the 3-dimensional 3fx and you want to have the fx. So, I will basically group them, consider the actual grouping is 3, because it is easy for me to make you understand in the 3 dimension, and consider there are x1 to xp number of variables. So, we will consider the first set as this, the second set as, say for example, this, and the third set as this. So, what are these red, green and blue colors? So, the red, green, blue colors would be basically x1. I am basically using the nomenclature as x1 to xp and then dividing to 3 groups. So, this is x1 to, say for example, x10, then sorry I should use x11, x, say for example 17. This 10, 17 does not make any sense, in the sense I am just giving numbers, and the last one is xp. So, what I have been able to do is the first set have been moved into the first factor. I will denote it as f1, not formula 1, x1. The second one is mapped onto the f2, factor 2. Third one has been done into factor 3. Now, what we meant actually, the sets x18 to xp, their correlation amongst themselves will be the highest. What I also meant it corresponding to f2, the effect correlations between x11 to x17 would be the highest. And finally, when I look into the factors 1 set, x1 to x10, the correlation is the highest, dependent structure is the highest. But also f1, let me draw the line so it will be easy in the sense. So consider this is the so called effects of as a group f3 as on the readings. This is for f1, this is for f2, but we have been able to divide f1, f2, f3 into 3 independent groups such that they would be orthogonal. That will what that means that orthogonal is the theoretical sense, but what we will try to orthogonal means there is no dependence between these groups. So, say for example, this is x1 and this is x2. Inside x1 the dependent structure is the maximum, inside x2 the dependent structure is maximum, but when we combine them the relationship as a group, the group interrelationship is as minimal as possible. That is why I am trying to utilize the concept of orthogonality, even though that may not be true 90 degrees, but they would be as high as possible such that the dependent structure is minimum. In statistical literature, we have two methods for estimating the parameters in factor analysis, and they are basically the principal component method and the maximum likelihood method. So, we will consider only one of them and basically try to solve the problems accordingly. Now, for the factorial analysis principal component method which we will use. So, for the population technically we will try to analyze this problem in this. So, we will basically have p number of actual x1 to xp and the variables, and we will basically partition in them into two groups. So, the two groups partitioning would be done like this. Do not pay attention on the variance covariance matrix on the left hand side. What I want to basically highlight is this. So, what we want to do is the first set would basically be the number of factors which will give us the maximum set of informations such that each of the groups they would have maximum correlation amongst inside them, but when we compare their interrelationship it will be the least. And the other effect would be sorry would basically be the error terms which are coming out. So, they are basically as I mentioned, this is for the case of f1, f2, those factors remember f3, and these are basically related to the errors. So, obviously again if you remember it is intuitive that the concept which we will try to utilize in order to solve this problem would be again the eigenvalues and eigenvectors principle. So, what we will try to do is that basically break them into the eigenvalues eigenvectors concept, but with the notion that the orthogonality between the eigenvalues and eigenvectors are being considered using the unit vectors concept. That means, this E1 to EM which we have. So, obviously M and P would be related, I will come to that. So, these are the orthogonal vectors, unit vectors which will be there in the directions of first, second, third, fourth till the mth one. So, E1 technically would be the vector such that the elements would be, the first is 1, the next values are all 0. When I consider, so this will be E1. When I consider E2, so let me write it. So, the first element is 0, second element is 1, third element is 0, the last one. When I consider E3, first is 0, second is 0, third is 1, fourth is 0 till the last one. So, when I come to the E suffix m, first 0, second 0, all are 0 except the last one. So, we are trying to basically multiply the corresponding eigenvectors in the using the unit vector methods and then try to find out the so called factors. Now, if you remember what we have done is that the sets or the relationship is divided into factors, the relationship is maximum within themselves, and between themselves we basically try to bring it to as low as possible, which is 0, which is the orthogonality concept which I mentioned. Now, once we basically find out the concept of the in the factor analysis method, what actually we are doing is that dividing the whole set. So, p number of vectors, the random variables were there, out of that we are taking m, and these m we are dividing to groups. Each group would have the maximum amount of interrelationship inside them, between them is as low as possible. So, using the concept, basically the L and the L transpose values would be given by if you remember one thing, I will come to that. The set of values in the sense that there are p number of rows here and m number of columns, but in this case the value of p minus m number of rows which are in between here, which I will try to, so these values after the mth one, m plus 2, m plus 3, m plus 4 till p1, there are all zeros. Remember that, that is important. And obviously, if it is happening from L or L transpose, the corresponding values here is m cross p. So, m number of rows, p number of columns. So, these m cross m values are all non-zero, in the sense non-zero means principal diagonal is there, but after that the columns m plus 1, m plus 2 till the pth one, all values are 0. And the error terms are given by. So, this is what is we are trying to highlight. This is the m and p as such that m obviously should be less than p. Based on that, we will try to do the calculations. So, once we put them in the total matrix based on which we are trying to find out the relationship. So, it was what the value was given as ln into the capital phi. These are all vectors and matrices, remember that. So, when we multiply that, we will basically have the sets as like, this should not be red in color, let me use blue, green. So, these are corresponding to the values so these are all the what I am talking about, these are the off diagonal elements. This is the so the diagonal elements are, so these are the orthogonality coming from the eigenvalues plus the phi component for the first error, then eigenvalues plus the phi component for the second error till the p cross p. So, if you consider the principal diagonal, first element, second element, mth element, pth element. So, they would basically give me the actual value corresponding to the error terms of the variance covariance matrix which you are trying to utilize. Now, our main concern obviously would be we want to find out the principal diagonal which is there in such a way that the values of multiplying the eigenvalues, eigenvectors with the errors would give us the actual component of the variance of the first, which is the covariance of the first with itself, then with the second with itself, third with itself, all will become out. So, when I put it equal to 1 and then find out and consider j is equal to 1. So, the values of 1, so this would be L1 square and L2 square all would be found out such that it will give me the maximum value of these errors plus the correlated terms which should be equal to the variance covariance values. We assume the fx which is going to come out from the remaining terms. So, that means there would be one effect which is coming out from the interrelationship between them, and one is the effect which is coming when we compare between themselves, between the groups. Between the groups, errors would be as low as possible, dependency structure is as low as possible, and inside the groups the effects would be maximum which is coming from the variances. Now, when we consider that, obviously the assumptions would be we will consider the best estimate for the population mean, and corresponding to that we will proceed also try to utilize the best estimate for the population variance also. Best estimate for the population mean would obviously be the mean value of the sample, which is this for the first random variable till the pth random variable, and S1, S2, S3, S4 provided that the mean values are not known, obviously you will lose 1 degrees of freedom, you will be try to utilize the S without the stars. So, this would basically be the so called standard error value for the first random variable, similarly the standard error value for the pth variable. So, we standardize them. So, the standardized value for the first value, which is the random variable minus the mean value divided by standard deviation. So, the say for example, a very simple z value for the first, similarly for the pth one. And we need to find out the corresponding values considering that the reading numbers are given 1, 2, 3, 4 till n. We will use this case to avoid problems of having one variables with large variance unduly affecting the factors of the others. So, what we are trying to do is trying to normalize them with the standard values or the standard variance such that any high and low values would basically be eliminated, and any relationship of dependence coming out with the variability would be standardized and reduced as low as possible. In case we have a sample when the eigenvalues, vectors and eigenvalues are given, so we will consider the eigenvalues and eigenvectors as lambda for the eigenvalues and E values unit, not the unit one, depending on the calculations which we do, the E1, E2, E3, E4 values which we find out for till the values of p, because there are p number of random variables for x1. So, we will basically be able to find out the case corresponding to the fact that the standard errors should be calculated for the factor analysis based on the fact that we need to find out the eigenvalues and the eigenvectors. So, once we do that, considering because eigenvalues and eigenvectors are orthogonal. So, once we find out the standard error matrix or the variance covariance counterpart from the sample would be given, where the principal diagonal, let me use a different color, principal diagonal values diagonals are the standard error whole square for first, second, third, fourth, corresponding the case that we are trying to put them and find out the values 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3 for the cell, and obviously the of the diagonal elements would be 0. So, once we have that, again it will verify the fact that we are trying to basically divide the total effects into two groups. One are the factors which are orthogonal to each other technically, and the elements which are taken in each group in factors would have basically have maximum dependent structure amongst themselves. So, with this I will close this 40th lecture and continue the discussion further in the factor analysis. Do the problem, and I know the progress has been slow. Please bear with me because the number of types things which we are going to cover is huge, and we will try to basically keep it as minimal as possible, because only doing the problems would not give you the idea that why we are doing it, like the concept of eigenvalues, eigenvectors, orthogonalities, they are coming up time and again in multivariate analysis. So, I am repeating them time and again, please bear with me, and I am sure you will be able to understand, and for any queries please put up your queries on the forums. We will definitely take our time and answer all of them accordingly. Thank you very much and have a nice day.